Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Susan Lopresti Wellness, Mind, Body, and Soul. This is the podcast where we explore the highs, the lows, and everything in between when it comes to a woman's life, her health, and all aspects of navigating the midlife landscape. I'm your host, Susan Lopresti, and I'm here today with myself, no guest today, and I did another short episode with you talking a little bit about my life and how I became a health coach and then ultimately a podcaster. And today I want to get into a different aspect of my life. So I want to explore the journey of healing and rejuvenation for mature women. And I want to give you my version because at this point, at 65 years old, I would say that I am a mature woman who's gone through some things, right? Which is inevitable when we start out as a young woman and there's no health issues. It's a beautiful thing. But as we get older, especially if we're really not taking good care of ourselves, things begin to pop up. So let's start with a lot of the physical changes because those are often the very first things that we start to notice, right? So besides the fact that your face is starting to sag and you're getting wrinkles around your eyes and, getting wrinkles around your mouth, you start to notice a change in your energy. So, these are physical changes, and then there are health changes as well. So for me, myself, I took my energy and my strong body for granted. And when I was 30, I got into running. It was big time. Actually, I had quit smoking cigarettes when I was 30, and I took up running, and it became my new addiction. So it was a healthy addiction, and my body was super strong. My legs were beautiful. They didn't have an ounce of cellulite or fat or jiggle or wiggle or anything like that, right? I had a really fast metabolism, so I didn't gain weight. I had hardly no aches and pains. Let me say I had no aches and pains, not even hardly. And let's face it, I just thought that I was invincible. And I thought I was always going to be in that kind of shape. But as the years passed, I began to notice very subtle shifts, especially when I went into perimenopause. So out of nowhere, well, let me say this. When I was in perimenopause and I was about 44 years old, I knew that I was going to get divorced. I was pretty sure of that. And it was a very stressful time. So there was a big emotional component to my health as well. It wasn't just physical. But I believe that my emotional issues contributed greatly to my physical ailments. So I developed Hashimoto's disease. I gained about 35 pounds. I was no longer running because my knees and all my joints were like killing me. I had migraine headaches. I had night sweats, hot flashes, anxiety, heart palpitations. My gut, I looked about 6 months pregnant. My stomach was that bloated. I had all kinds of gut issues. I either was totally constipated or completely had the runs. I had gas to the point that it sometimes was a struggle to be able to leave the house because of the embarrassment of the way I felt and the way I looked, right? My skin definitely started to change. I was noticing the wrinkles around the eyes. I was noticing that I had very dry skin. My hair was falling out. It was brittle. My nails had ridges in them really, really bad. I ate a lot of crap. I wasn't eating well anymore because I didn't have the patience or the energy or the time or the wherewithal to even go to the supermarket and pick out healthy foods and then cook and then clean up. And so I was the takeout queen: pizza, lasagna, hot dogs, you name it, I was eating it. I went from being a health nut, juicing and all of that, to just being a total, I don't want to call it junk food, but unhealthy foods to be eating. So clearly they weren't nourishing my body. My body was asking for more rest and more nourishment and more care, but I didn't have the energy for any of that. I really didn't even care about myself anymore because I was an emotional wreck at that time. And at first I was like resisting these changes, and I thought this can't really be happening to me because I always felt great. But over time I started to learn, and it took a while, I'm not going to lie, because I had to go through a divorce, I had to go through the separation, I had to sell my home and find a new place to live and make it as easy of a transition as I possibly could to make it so that my daughter didn't have to suffer as much as possible. So there was a lot involved. There was a lot of moving parts, and it really took a toll on my health. And I do contribute a lot of it to my age and to changing hormones with perimenopause, but I believe that the stress of my life just really exacerbated the whole entire process. But over time, once I was divorced and my daughter and I were in a beautiful little peaceful apartment and we absolutely loved it, I learned to start honoring my body again. And instead of fighting the changes, I started working with them. And I embraced whole foods again. I started out with very gentle movement, so I would do restorative yoga, and I joined a yoga studio. And I went to all of the simplest and easiest classes that I could find. And it was practices like yoga and meditation that truly nurtured my physical and my mental self. And one of the biggest lessons that I learned is that our bodies are not just vessels, they are our temple. And just like a temple, they require love and they require care and they require us to pay attention. Your body sends messages. Your symptoms are your messages. And we're either going to ignore those messages or we're going to pay attention to them and begin to try and make sense of what these messages are trying to tell us. And intuitively, we know, because intuitively, I knew that it was the stress that I was under, it was the sadness, it was a grieving process. And truthfully, I didn't want to get divorced. I just knew that I had to for my salvation and my daughter's salvation and probably my ex-husband's salvation as well, right? So that's the truth of it. And we need to treat our bodies as a temple. And aging gracefully isn't about trying to hold on to our youth, right? It's inevitable. My dad used to say, youth is wasted on the young. And I'm actually going to do a podcast episode about that. But at the time when I was a teenager in early 20s and my dad would say that, it used to freaking infuriate me to the point that you can't even imagine. I was like, oh my God, he always says the same crap. But I didn't comprehend what it was that he meant, but now I get it. Now I get it. So youth is wasted on the young. So aging gracefully isn't about holding on to the youth. It's about celebrating each stage of life and caring for your body as the incredible gift that it is. Because if you are healthy, that is the greatest gift from God that you could ever receive. And so many of us take our good health for granted until we lose it. So while we have good health, we may not be nourishing our bodies the right way. We may not be moving our bodies the right way. We may not be doing any of those things. And then once we get sick, that's when we want to change everything around. So if you're listening to me today and you are healthy, now is the time, while you're healthy, to be nourishing your body physically and emotionally and spiritually, and doing all the things that you possibly can to maintain that health. Don't wait until you're sick to decide to get healthy. And that's the purpose of my podcast, is to offer you so many different ways of healing, so many different healing modalities and different things that we could do, tools and rituals and exercise programs and eating protocols. That's what this podcast is all about. It's about maintaining your health. So let's talk about the emotional evolution, right? Because that's a journey. And it can be a roller coaster, like I just described my life. I had great highs and low lows, and now I'm on a great high again, and I hope to maintain this high for many years to come, but I work at it. I work at my emotional health, my physical health, my spiritual health. It's something that I do all the time. And as a young woman, I was constantly seeking validation from other people. I was seeking validation from my spouse. And I wasn't looking at myself and seeing the wonderful person that I am and that I was back then. And I'm not trying to give myself praises, but it's the truth. And if you don't value yourself first, who else in this world is ever going to value you if you don't show respect and validation for yourself and stand up for yourself and speak up for yourself, right? So I always wanted to please everyone else. And I was always concerned about what everyone else thought of me. And I spent so much time pouring into other people's cups and giving to them that I totally forgot to support myself and give to myself and honor myself and do good for myself. Does that sound familiar to any of you? But here's what happens when you mature. I love being mature. I don't think I would want to go back to being a young woman again, because maturity has taught me so much, and I'm so much more of a better person to myself first. I honor myself first. It's not selfish, it's self-care. Because you start to realize that your worth doesn't come from others. And you begin to see it very clear, where you're like, why didn't I see that 30 years ago when I put all of my attention and thought process into other people instead of me? And what happens is it comes from within, and you start to see it. And it's through those heartbreaks, it's through the triumphs that you achieve, and the everyday struggles. That's when you start to realize. I learned how to set boundaries with co-workers, with bosses. I wouldn't tolerate a boss being disrespectful to me. If you want to correct me, if you want to put me in my place, there's a way to do that. There's also a time and a place to do it. It's not to be done in front of a group of people where you feel all high and mighty and you're putting someone else down. So I learned those boundaries. I learned to speak up for myself and let people know that that is unacceptable behavior from them. Where when I was young, I was so wishy-washy and afraid of my own shadow, I would never speak up to anyone. Not my spouse, not my parents, not figures of authority. I let people walk all over me. So I learned how to set boundaries. And I also learned how to say no without feeling guilty. Now, I didn't always say no, but when I had to say no to a request, I felt confident in saying no. And I learned how to love myself. I never loved myself. When I looked in the mirror, I saw everything that was wrong with me. I was always judging myself for how I looked, how I spoke. I wasn't smart. I wasn't pretty enough. I didn't have big boobs. I didn't have this, that. Oh my God, I was my own worst enemy as a young woman. No wonder why my spouse didn't respect me. I didn't respect me. How could someone else respect you when you don't respect yourself? But I've grown to understand that being emotionally healthy doesn't mean being perfect. I'm never going to be perfect. No one is ever going to be perfect. It means that you have to learn to embrace your flaws and know that you are enough just the way you are, right? You're enough. You're perfect just the way you are. This is the way God created you. You were meant to be this way. Embrace your flaws. Embrace all the good things about you and just accept yourself for who and what you are. So let's go on to the spiritual part of my journey, which for me has been the most transformative of all. When I was younger, I saw spirituality as something that was external, something that you did on Sundays, right? You went to church and you prayed to somebody. There were statues all over the place. And I remember as a little girl, you were standing, you were sitting, you were kneeling, you were standing, you were sitting, you were kneeling, you shook hands, you went to the altar, you received a communion, you went back to your pew, you stood, you kneeled, you stood. That's what it was. Big picture, that's what it was for me, right? It was very external. And so we went on Sundays, we went for special occasions, Christmas, Easter, whatever, other holidays. But as I matured, I began to feel a deeper connection to something greater than myself. And I remember having a conversation with my next door neighbor at the time, who was an elderly man, and we were talking about certain things, and he said to me, he said, Susan, are you at the point in your life where you're becoming a seeker? And I was like, what do you mean by that? He said that there's more than just you. There's something greater than you. And I said, I guess that's what it was. So I started to explore meditation. And I started to explore energy healing and practices that allowed me to tune into my soul. So yoga was always a practice, and I talked about this in another episode. I was introduced to yoga when I was 19, and until today at 65, I still practice yoga. But when I was 19, probably from 19 to about 33 or 34, yoga was just an exercise program for me, more than anything on a spiritual level or focusing on it from a mental or a connection to something greater than me. It was more of a physical exercise. But as I got older and I went into this seeking phase of my life, that I started to find that connection. And it's about connecting to your inner self, connecting to nature, connecting to the people that you truly love, that you feel good being around and you enjoy and you just feel like you could be your true authentic self with them. And then connecting to the universe, because we are spiritual beings in a human body, but we are spiritual beings. And our thoughts become our things. And so what you focus on is what you get more of. And when you start to learn and be intuitive to that, that's when you really start to grow. And this connection has really brought me personally so much peace, even in times of uncertainty. And I'll give you an example of that. When I was 61 years old, I lost my corporate job. I got let go due to a merger. And I had this 5-year plan that I was retiring at 65. Well, my company had a different plan, and they let me go at 61. And I knew that at 61 years old, I was not going to get another corporate job. And I certainly wasn't going to get a corporate job that was paying my salary. And so for the first 2 weeks that I lost my job, I was in shock and hurt and scared. And then I started to go back to the spiritual Susan, right? Because right now I was living in the real world of scarcity and fear and what if and what am I going to do and how's it going to work out? And I just decided, Susan, this is God's plan. This happened to you for a reason. And God has never let you down before. You've been in worse positions than this. You've been bankrupt, you've been divorced, you've gone through illness, and you're still here, and you're still supportive, and you will still be supported no matter what. So just accept it for what it is and know that something else will come along that will be better than what you had. Because truthfully, corporate America was not my thing. It didn't resonate with me. It didn't align with my core values. It didn't align with anything that I had interest in. It was a paycheck. And it provided me, a lot of perks and benefits, but at the end of the day, it was only a paycheck. So when I came to terms with that, it brought me peace in an uncertain time. And it helped me to see that every challenge, every detour in life, and every success is all part of my path. And just accept it. And this path, no matter how windy it is, it's perfect because it's mine. So my friends, this journey from a young woman to a mature woman isn't always an easy one. But it is beautiful if you look at it from that aspect. Everything is a gift. Even the bad stuff is a gift. And each stage of our life will bring its own lessons and its own blessings. And it's about honoring your body, embracing your emotions, awakening your spirit. And as you do this, what will happen is that you'll find that the woman you become is a stronger, wiser, and more radiant woman than you could have ever imagined. I would love to hear about your journey. So, what physical, emotional, or spiritual changes have shaped you on your journey? You could either go to my Instagram and leave me a note there, or you could email me. And I wanted to let you know if any of this resonated with you. I am starting a program that's called 30 Days Healed to Rejuvenate, and it's starting on March 1st, and I will put the link to that program in the show notes. And if you want, you can click on the link and see what it's all about. And if you feel inclined, I'd love to have you join. So, like the title of the class, 30 Days Healed to Rejuvenate. Every day for 30 days, I will be coming on live and on Zoom, and we will move our body in some way every single day just to wake us up, get our blood flowing, do a couple of moves just to move around. And then there'll be a topic of health specific for women and ways of improving. So it could be brain health, gut health, heart health, bone health. Those are the obvious things. We'll talk weight loss. We'll talk not just health. We'll talk about lifestyle. We'll talk a little bit about spirituality. We will talk about careers and changing careers, midlife, just so many different things that women of our age are experiencing. And so it's a great community to let you know that you're not alone. There's many women in your predicament right now, and believe me when I tell you, it's a wonderful time of life. Take my word for it. I just turned 65. I've never been happier. I've never felt healthier, knock on wood, and I plan to remain like this for many years to come. So check out my program, 30 Days Healed to Rejuvenate. If you're not already following me here on my podcast, please be sure to subscribe so that you'll know when the next episode comes out. If you'd like, I'd love for you to leave me a comment as well. Anyway, ladies, until the next time, be well, stay happy, and bye for now. Take good care.